Hi there, guys. My name is Jordan Miller. This is going to be my first ever episode in my review. What's the word? My review playlist. In my review list. For the first game I'm going to be doing in this review, I'm going to be doing Death Stranding because I just recently beat it. I started it back in July, just recently finished it, and I'm going to be going through and doing kind of like a structured thing for each game. This will probably be the same through most games, and I already have Ghost of Tsushima planned out for my next one, so I'll probably try to put the link up above for that one if you guys are also interested at all in knowing about that game. This is mostly going to be a spoiler-free type review. I'm going to not try to spoil too much. I'm going to kind of be spoiling gameplay a little bit because I'm going to be telling you guys about the gameplay mechanics and how the gameplay works and stuff. So that's a little bit of a spoiler. But story-wise, I'm not going to be spoiling too much. I'm just going to kind of lay out the base plot for you guys, and then you can take it from there. So the first thing I'm going to start with in my review is gameplay. So for the gameplay mechanics of Death Stranding, you're really not going to see anything quite like it. The whole game is tailored around you exploring certain areas and getting through these very lucrative environments, such as rocky environments where it's hard to get around, drains more stamina out of you. You know, if you're going up a steep incline, that's going to take a lot out of your stamina, and you got to kind of you want to offset and, wait a minute, kind of walk. You'll run into snowy areas where it's best that you have the right gear for that kind of environment. Same thing with when it's wet and rainy. You're going to be possibly sliding down and falling down, which is more likely, so you want to take it way slower rather than just trying to run up, because if you run up too steep of a hill, you're going to go sliding right back down. Honestly, same thing that would happen when it's dry, but you have a way better chance of getting up there. So it's pretty cool because a lot of the gameplay is just going around and getting to all these different types of areas to drop off your packages to, distro centers and doctors and engineers. And the cool thing about it is that as you get through the game, you will get new items unlocked, such as exoskeletons to help you with your travel and with your deliveries. So you can get a speed skeleton that'll help you go faster. You can get a power skeleton, which will allow you to carry more weight on your back. You can get a all-terrain exoskeleton, which will help you when you're in snowy areas or when you're trying to climb up steep areas. So it's really cool how they wrapped all of that together, and it's a lot of fun going around and delivering to these people. Personally, a lot of the likes to me with it were, how interesting and new it was, running around doing all of this. It's a lot of fun playing as Norman Reedus, and doing all of this kind of adds a certain, je ne sais quoi to the whole thing, rather than just being some random new character and running around and doing it. Another cool thing about the gameplay mechanics, aside from running around, traveling, and trying to drop off stuff, is that you'll also be dealing with these things called BTs, which are basically like ghosts in a sense, and the only way that you can see them is by using what they call a BB unit, which is, you've probably seen it in the trailers. If you haven't, it's this little baby that's in a incubation tank to kind of help it stay in that baby form, almost like a mother's womb, and you use that baby and this scanner to look around and find where the BTs are at so that you can sneak around. You hold R1 to hold your breath, because if they hear you, they'll come along, and once they get you, the entire map will start to fill up with black liquid, and you have to kind of try to run as there's these I don't even know, what is it? Literally Noob Saibot almost, if you want, from Mortal Kombat. Kind of like him, popping out of the ground, trying to grab you and drag you down. And if they fully get you down and drag you into there, then you'll be getting dragged around and then just like be stuck fighting these certain huge BTs that are shaped after animals, such as like a giant lion with a gold face. Eventually down the line, you face other kind of animals. I guess I don't really want to spoil it too much for you guys, but you face giant BT-sized animals, and you have to run along buildings. And eventually down the line, you also get into combat with these BTs. At first, you're kind of just sneaking around them, but then eventually you get into combat with them. And you will start using, you learn, this is somewhat of a tiny spoiler, so if you don't want this, skip ahead probably a couple of minutes, few minutes or something. But you use your blood, you end up finding out that your blood and your urine can be used against the BTs. Urine, I believe, only shocks them and kind of like stuns them, whereas if you're using blood, it actually kind of sends them back to their world in a sense. So you'll have hematic grenades. You go all the way up to having like hematic rocket launchers. So anything in between, shotguns, assault rifles, all using hematic rounds, which if you don't know what that word means, it's just blood. So you use blood rounds to kill these BTs in a sense. And it's an insane amount of fun once you get down to it. The thing that kind of sucks for a lot of people is that they consider it really boring doing the deliveries part, which I can understand, but you have to do the deliveries part to get to the good stuff underneath, which is fighting all of these BTs. You know, you go as far to even fight more things that I won't describe, but again, there's a lot of awesome action in it, as well as running around and delivering stuff. And one of my personal favorite things about it is that when you're running around doing deliveries, during certain missions or during like really long deliveries, the game itself will randomly just play a song for you. From, I think it was, I don't want to be quoted on this, but it was something like one of the state, just in general, like state music centers. I forget the exact word for it, but it was like the Nevada, music center was creating these songs for the game actually that Hideo had picked out and used. So these songs are really great. The soundtrack itself has actually won awards. I recently been looking it up. Won plenty of awards for best sound. Even at the Game Awards of 2019, they won best score in music. So it was honestly a great playlist. It's a lot of fun running around listening to those songs. And altogether, I would say that the gameplay can be kind of rigorous, and at times it can be kind of boring, but I think if you stick to it, you will have a lot of fun fighting the BTs and delivering packages, and sometimes even humans, to these distro centers. So next on the list, I was going to be talking a little bit about the story behind Death Stranding, just to give you guys kind of a taste. Not too many spoilers. If the gameplay was enough for you guys, then you could stop there. But if you're also interested in just hearing about the story, I'll kind of lay out a plot somewhat to the best of my ability, but also try to be understanding that Hideo Kojima is a very confusing man a lot of the times. But yes, we'll do some story. So to me, one of my favorite things about playing Hideo Kojima's games is the stories. Honestly, one of my personal favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. It's one of the most impressive games all around. It just has one of the most beautiful story arcs. For those of you that don't know about it, you end up having this person that was your boss, because he ends up being called Big Boss because he takes the name from her, but she was the original Big Boss. And actually, I don't know if she was Big Boss. I think she was actually just the boss. But she ends up turning on you, and later down the line, at the end of the game, you end up fighting her and killing her, and it actually ends up being that she was just a double agent the whole entire time. So she was like, it was really upsetting the way that they put it. This one review put it that she was her country's hero, but known as their greatest traitor, or known as like a traitor, but one of their best heroes. So this is really upsetting. But like Hideo is just he's very unique in his writing style like that he's able to create these kind of like story arcs and stuff. And in general, his characters are usually pretty weird. And the same thing goes for Death Stranding, even more so because he had split from Konami when he made the game. So he was allowed, I'm sure, much more free reign when it came to everything, and he really went for it. Um, so you start off as Sam Porter Bridges, which is Norman Reedus, and you go around and you're like making deliveries, kind of, and it's just like more of a low key thing. You end up running into this one girl. They show you who BTs are. The girl's name is Fragile. She's another person kind of like you. She has dooms in her body, which in the story, I believe dooms allow you to like somewhat sense BTs instead of being a human and still alive. That means that you died at one point and then came back through the beach, and then you're allowed dooms. I believe that's what the plot was loosely on, and so then she kind of talks to you for a second, and then you end up experience the BTs because they come across. You finally get your whole taste of that, and then you go back, and then you meet up with the president of the United States, which is like Bridget Strand, her name is, and you meet Die Hardman, which is like her right hand man, and then they send you on this whole what is it? They send you on this whole mission to go across the entire United States to get Amelia Strand, or Amelie Strand, sorry, not Amelia, Amelie Strand, which is this girl that you happen to know from your past. They don't really allude to it, but they just kind of show you that you had known her and you two had been together on this beach. And so you go, they tell you to go and get her across the United Cities of America, they call it, and to connect all these strands, which are basically like these distro centers that I had been mentioning in the gameplay. You're supposed to load all of those onto this chiral network, and the chiral network kind of allows all of you to be combined together. And you're able to then use printers at places, you're able to store items there and all that stuff. You know, the chiral network allows you to basically just function with all of those people. It allows you to pick up orders from certain distro centers like across the map. So the chiral network is pretty important. Going across and setting it up was pretty important. And so that's loosely what the plot really is that you're just going across and doing all of that. And then eventually characters start flooding in, such as Troy Baker's Higgs, which is basically like almost like God status. He's able to actually control the BTs, and you get into fights with him. You end up finding out that him and Fragile have a past. You meet other characters along the line of Mads Mikkelsen. Like you'll be going along through the private rooms where you can rest and use the bathroom and shower off and use the sink, customize your stuff, rehydrate yourself. So stuff like that. And in this private room, when you leave, you'll usually get a cutscene. It depends on how many times you're in the private room, but if you're in between missions or something, or you just did a main mission and then go to the private room, it'll most likely happen. You connect into your BB unit. When you connect your hose into the BB unit, connect yourself into the BB unit, you get this flashback where you see Mads Mikkelsen's character just kind of walking around, and you get to see from BB's perspective of him with his wife, and him walking around. And the whole time you're kind of just left in suspense, wondering what they're even talking about, wondering what's even going on. Another cool character is Guillermo del Toro's character that shows up. What is his name? Deadman, he's called, because he's never been alive, actually. He's just made up of all body parts from dead people, I believe. And so he doesn't even have his own beach or something like that. Beaches, everybody in this world has their own beach. And, their own beach, in a sense, I think, is just kind of where they were, where they happened to die, or something like that. When it comes to the story, certain parts I'm a little rusty at because I even still have yet to fully understand the story. So I can only help to a certain point, which is good. I don't spoil it too much, but when it came to story work, it was really great. The fact that it was helped developed from Sony Interactive and Hideo was both great because Hideo's writing along with Sony Interactive's motion capture and their finances was really great all around. All the characters, all the acting, you get so many amazing actors. You get a lot of great moments, and Troy Baker did an outstanding, phenomenal job, like he always does. And it just led for an all-around great story. As far as it was, I didn't have any dislikes other than having it be hard to understand. But again, when you're playing Hideo's games, that's gonna happen. So if you're not a big fan of storylines that are kind of hard to understand, I would recommend that you probably don't check out this game because it's not really made for you. But yeah, that's all around kind of the storyline for the most part, just going across and building all of these strands, and then a bunch of stuff happens in between. For my final category that I'll be speaking on, I was thinking about having them separate, but I'll just kind of lump them in together. I'm going to have the playability plus who the game was kind of made for. This game was more so made for people that are very interested in Hideo's work and people that are very interested in tedious tasks. I would highly recommend it for people that don't have ADHD like myself, because I started the game in July and didn't finish it until October. So I spent like a good 3 months just working on the game because my ADHD kind of made it hard to just sit there and keep doing those repeated tasks. I ended up falling off and going on to a different game, but then came back to finally finish it. Much like how I am with Hideo's games, because that's usually how it goes. Like if you have ADHD or anything like that, or you're kind of restless when it comes to games, or like you get bored very quickly, that can tend to happen with his games because they're pretty repetitive in a sense, but they're also very interesting, and the storylines are something that you won't see anywhere else. But if you're a fan of his, even if you have the ADHD, I would recommend playing it. If you're not a huge fan of long storylines that don't make sense to you, this game wasn't really made for you. And yeah, I mean, you could always try to give it a try, but for the most part, you probably won't find anything that you like about it. The playability, I would say the playability was pretty great. Um, Even though it took me a while, when I came back to it and when I first started playing it, I was really addicted to it because I just loved that whole getting back and forth, delivering these packages, and trying to, dodge mules, they're called, which are just basically NPCs in the game. These, what is it? It was people like you, transporters or porters, that ended up going rogue instead, and then just trying to steal from people, I believe. And yeah, so it's a lot of fun running back and forth, in my opinion, doing all of that. And then they still leave a lot to be desired, even at the end. I believe they load you back into a certain spot so you can just keep playing the game. So the replay value is also really good there because they leave plenty of missions for you to do, plenty of deliveries. You can keep going through and do as many as you really wanted. I'm sure they got more than you need and more than enough to keep you busy. So the playability was definitely solid. For the final little piece of this review, for the final parts of all my reviews, I'm going to be going through like a 5-star rating system that I did. I didn't really want to make, some crazy thing like 17 hashtags out of 25 hashtags, or 3 Millers out of 5 Jordan, some crazy kind of system. Those ones are even stupider than most, but, just, you get my point. I didn't want to come up with anything dumb, so I was just trying to do a 5-star rating system, basic, kind of tell you guys where it's at. So I'll run you through the list, and then we'll tell you where Death Stranding is at. So for one on my rating system is something that was not good. It, makes it even hard to finish the game. You don't really want to play it that much. All around, just not a game. Not a game. All around, just not a good game. Not even that it's not a great game. It's not even a good game. It's not even a decent game. For 2, again, it's like not great. It's just not great, but there was interesting potential to it at least. There were some spots that, were pretty interesting about it, but as a whole, it just lacked what it needed to be an actual, like, good game, to be labeled as something good. 3 is going to be, you'll see 3 a lot because I don't want to lie to you guys and tell you that everything is amazing, because that's not exactly how it always works. 3 is just decent, but it's missing certain necessary pieces that would be needed to make it a 4-star game. Such as either it had bad dialogue or the gameplay wasn't that fun, but the story was good, and vice versa. But all around, just a decent game, playable, but not something that you really need to play. Something that you could probably just watch somebody else play. 4 stars is good, almost perfect, and there doesn't even necessarily need to even be anything wrong with the game if it's a 4-star. But that just means that it lacks something that would have made it 5 stars. Again, kind of like how 3 was, where it just, 3 lacked more things, but 4, it just happened to lack one thing that would have put it above to a 5-star. Whether it was the ending was, boring, or, didn't really, give you satisfaction, in completing the game. Just anything along the lines of that, anything that it happened to be missing. Or 5 stars, which is just perfect. If it ends up 5 stars out of 5 stars, then it was just a masterpiece of a game, and it covered all the bases, in my opinion. And, and it just left you wanting more from the game. Sorry about looking over constantly. I'm still, I just wrote it all out, so I'm still reading off of my piece of paper. But for Death Stranding now, after we've gone through the whole list, Death Stranding, I would honestly say that Death Stranding is probably, it goes back and forth, because when you look at other user reviews and when you listen to other people speaking on it, just like on Google, when you look at their reviews, a lot of people like it, so I'm very inclined to almost give it 4 stars. But I also kind of want to give it 3 stars, because I'm afraid that it's not for everybody. It's good for the people that it goes after, but also it doesn't always fit for everyone. Kind of like how Call of Duty is. Call of Duty is the type of game where it fits for most people, honestly. Not everybody, but most people honestly like Call of Duty. There's such a big fan base behind it. Same thing with Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto would be classified as a 5-star game because, it was perfect for mostly everybody. Everybody enjoyed playing it, but Death Stranding doesn't seem like that. I wish I could go for 3.5, but I really can't, so I end up on 3, because I would say it was decent. It just lacked a couple of things. It's so hard for me when it comes to this one. It really was. For me personally, I'm actually just going to say 4 stars. Because for me, it had lacked maybe a thing or two, but there was nothing really wrong with the game, in my opinion. It just maybe could have added a couple more things, or made the story a little more, a little more tight, we'll say, because it was very loose. You didn't know what was going on. You were getting fed all this information. You're getting all these emails and stuff. But for the most part, yeah, we'll go with 4. We'll go with 4 stars for Death Stranding. All around, the game that it was, meant to be, it was. It was very hard to understand at times, and I keep saying that because that's really the truth of it. But at the core of it, it was just a game that was supposed to be played. Going around delivering, killing BTs. That's really the heart of the game, and that's the part that I think should be focused on, rather than a story that kind of is hard to explain. So, yep, that is my first review for Death Stranding. Thank you for tuning in, for watching, for observing. Check out my next videos if you like. Give it a like, subscribe, and here's to more content coming out. We'll see you guys around.